The Galactic Academy, a girl named Arianel sat alone. She was from the Valerians, a proud alien race of shimmering blue-skinned beings with crystal-like eyes. But she was different, her glow was faint, her markings dull. The others whispered that she was a half-light, born from a broken lineage, and therefore unworthy of her people's legacy. Every day she took her seat in the farthest corner of the hall, silent, eyes fixed on the floor. Around her, students from 100 worlds laughed, talked, and formed alliances that could change the stars themselves. Aria was invisible among them. That morning the human delegation arrived, young soldiers and scholars from Earth, the newest species invited into the alliance. The aliens whispered as they passed, "The primitives are here." Humans were considered impulsive, emotional, and fragile. No one expected much from them. But when the instructor announced team assignments for the interstellar strategy trials, a series of simulations testing diplomacy and combat coordination, fate did something unexpected. Aria was left alone, unchosen. Again. The hall went quiet, then a voice broke through the silence, deep, steady, human. "I'll take her." Heads turned. It was Ethan Ward, a tall young human with a scar above his brow and eyes that carried both exhaustion and defiance. His teammates looked at him like he had lost his mind. Why choose her, the unwanted one? Ethan walked over, placed his datapad beside hers and sat down like she was his equal, like she was worth being beside. Aria didn't know what to say. No one had ever sat next to her before, not like this, not without disgust or pity. He smiled slightly. "We'll win this together, all right." The words felt strange together. For the first time in her life, someone spoke to her as if she mattered. But their team wasn't welcomed. The others mocked them, the broken Valerian and the reckless human. The simulations began, space conflicts, negotiation scenarios, survival challenges. Each one tested their unity, and each time Ethan refused to abandon her, even when it cost them points. During a mission simulation on a digital war zone, the system threw them into a collapsing asteroid field. Other teams teleported out instantly to save their scores. Ethan didn't. He stayed because Aria's control panel was malfunctioning. "I'm not leaving without you," he shouted through the comms as fragments of rock slammed around them. Her heart raced. No one had ever stayed before. Every instinct told her to push him away, to not let him get hurt because of her, but he wouldn't move. So she took control of the ship's secondary system, channeling all power into the thrusters. Together, they escaped the collapsing field, barely alive but victorious. When they emerged from the simulation pod, the hall was silent again. For the first time, no one laughed. The monitors showed their result, highest synchronization score between two minds of different species. Even the instructors looked impressed. But something deeper changed that day, not the score, not the respect, but Aria's belief in herself. She had always thought she was a shadow among stars, yet the human, reckless, kind, impossible human saw her like she was light itself. That night, as the academy lights dimmed and stars filled the sky dome, Aria whispered to herself, "Maybe I was never unwanted. Maybe I was just waiting for someone to see me." But far beyond the academy, in the void between worlds, a storm was gathering, something that would test not just their bond but the fate of both their species. Welcome to my channel Sci-Fi Love Story. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. She sat alone in the corner of the great Galactic Academy, her hands folded tight around a faintly glowing crystal that no one else could see. Her name was Arianel. And she was born among the Valerians, the race of light and crystal blood, the ones whose skin shimmered under starlight like rivers of color. But she was different. Her glow was dim, and her eyes dull like the light inside her. Was tired of shining. Everyone called her half-light. A mistake, a reminder that perfection did not exist. She moved through corridors like a shadow, unseen, unwanted, unheard. She listened to laughter around her, but never joined it. She learned that silence was safer than trying to belong and failing again. So she became invisible the day humans arrived to the academy. She stayed in her seat watching the tall figure of their leader. Ethan Ward, his eyes sharp, his steps steady, his presence strange among beings of light and flame and shadow. Humans were new to the stars, called impulsive, reckless, fragile. And yet they had been invited to learn. To prove they could stand beside the elder races, Arianel thought they looked like children lost in a storm of giants. The first training of the academy was team assignment. Every student would join a group for the interstellar strategy. Trials, a test of mind and courage. When the names were called one by one, everyone found their team. Except her. When her name echoed across the hall, no one answered, no one called her over. And the hall went silent. She stood frozen, then sat down again, pretending she had chosen to be alone until a voice broke through the whispers. "Ill take her." It was the human Ethan. His words were calm, but they carried weight across the room. Eyes turned, shock filled the air. He walked straight to her seat and placed his datapad beside hers without hesitation, like it was the most natural thing to do. He looked at her and smiled faintly. "We will win this together," he said. She stared at him, unable to speak, because no one had ever said "together" with her before. The rest of the students whispered, calling him reckless, but Ethan ignored them. Their first simulation began in the void of a digital battlefield. Ships moved through darkness, and light clashed like storms. Each team commanded fleets across stars, but their team was unbalanced. Arianel nervous, silent, and Ethan untested still. He trusted her with every command. When the simulation threw them into an asteroid field, chaos followed. Rocks shattered shields, alarms screamed. Other teams abandoned the mission, teleporting to safety. Ethan did not. He turned to her across the console and said, "I am not leaving without you." Her heart pounded. She had never heard words like that. Her control system flickered, the holographic stars around them collapsing into static. She felt panic rise. But he stayed, his voice steady. "You can fix it, I know you can." She forced her trembling fingers to move, rerouting energy channels. Her faint glow brightened for the first time as she merged her biolight with the ship's system. The thrusters roared. They escaped through the collapsing debris field as fragments of light followed them into silence. When they emerged, the hall of the academy was silent. The results displayed above them, highest synchronization between human and Valyrian ever recorded. The instructors stared. Even the ones who once ignored her whispered her name with respect, but Arianel did not look at them. She looked at Ethan. He was smiling, not in pride, but relief, like saving her mattered more than winning. That night, the stars outside the academy shone through the great dome. She sat under them, touching her faintly glowing hands, whispering to herself, "Maybe I was never unwanted. Maybe I was just waiting for someone to see me." Days passed, and their names began to spread. The broken Valyrian and the reckless human, together they trained and studied. She learned how humans thought with emotion first, logic second. She once told him that Valyrians believed feelings made minds weak. He laughed and said, "Maybe that's why we humans keep surviving, because we are too stubborn to stop feeling." His laughter was strange to her, yet comforting. She found herself smiling with him, though she did not understand why. For the first time, she began to stay after class to talk. She began to ask questions, to argue, and to dream. The academy prepared for the next round of trials, and she could feel the eyes of others on her, no longer cruel, but curious. She walked differently now, with her head high, though she still felt the old fear whispering at the edges of her mind. One evening, when the lights dimmed and the academy slept, Ethan found her in the observatory, staring at the distant rift of stars. He asked her what she was thinking. She said, "I wonder if light can ever belong among shadows." He said, "Maybe light belongs wherever someone chooses to see it." She turned to him then and saw that his eyes reflected the same stars she once feared to look at, and she realized something that frightened her more than loneliness. She was not invisible anymore. Someone had seen her, and the thought made her heart tremble, as if her whole world was beginning again, somewhere beyond the academy, unseen by them. Both the darkness of the void shifted, ancient eyes opening, waiting for the moment when the girl of light and the boy of earth would cross the line between destiny and choice. Because what began with kindness would soon become something far greater and far more dangerous. Weeks passed since the trials, and the names, Ethan and Arianel, began to echo across the corridors of the Galactic Academy as the impossible pair, the human and the half-light, who had defied every expectation and turned mockery into awe. They trained together side by side, their bond growing stronger, though neither spoke of what they truly felt. When she smiled, he smiled too. When he doubted, she lifted him with calm certainty. They were different, yet their hearts began to move as one. Across the academy, rumors spread that something strange stirred beyond the mapped sectors, near the dark rift, the place where light itself bent and vanished in silence. An ancient fear among the elder races. They called it the Mouth of Unmaking, and one day the Academy Command announced a mission, a reconnaissance task for top students to investigate an unknown signal emanating from the rift. Most refused, fearing death. But Ethan stepped forward. Without hesitation, Arianel followed, her voice steady. "We go together." The command accepted their choice, and soon they were aboard the small vessel Horizon, with 3 other cadets. The stars outside stretched like liquid light, and the silence of space pressed against them. For the first few hours, everything was calm. They laughed, they shared stories. Ethan told her about Earth, blue skies, oceans that sang with wind, cities full of sound and color. She listened, eyes wide, as if she could see it through his words. She spoke of Valyria, the crystal gardens that glowed under tea wind suns, the music that vibrated through light itself. He told her he wished to see it. She said, "Maybe one day you will." But then the ship trembled, sensors screamed as static filled their controls. An invisible wave swept through the systems, shutting down lights and life. support the cadets panicked as darkness consumed the ship. Only Arianel and Ethan kept their focus. The signal was alive, whispering through every frequency. A voice, older than stars. We are the null, it said. We consume the bright we hunger for. The minds that dream and think. Ethan looked at Arianel, her faint glow trembling against the dark, her skin reflecting shadows. He said, stay with me, don't let them in. But the others began to scream one by one, their minds unraveling, as the null invaded their thoughts, feeding on fear and memory. The walls pulsed like a living creature. Arianel felt cold voices clawing at her heart, whispering unwanted, forgotten, broken. But then his voice cut through it, her name like a blade. Arianel, look at me, you not. Unwanted, you everything. They cannot break. The glow in her chest flared. The light she had hidden all her life burst through her skin, flooding the cabin with brilliance. The null recoiled, screaming through the void. But the strain was too much. The ship cracked, alarms howled. Ethan grabbed her hand and shouted, do it now, show them who you are. She released the full force of her biolight, merging with the human neural field. Their combined energy exploded outward, a wave of living fire that swept through the darkness, burning null into silence. When it ended, the ship drifted lifeless near the edge of the rift, the remaining cadets unconscious. Ethan collapsed beside her, his pulse fading. She touched his face, whispering, please stay with me. I cannot lose the only one who ever saw me. Her light dimmed around him like a fragile flame, protecting him. Until rescue came, they were found days later, their energy signature. Unlike anything recorded by science, the Academy called it impossible, the union of human neural current and Valerian light force, something no one believed could exist. When they awoke in the med bay, the entire council of instructors stood in silence. Ethan smiled weakly and said, told you we'd make it back. Arianel tried to laugh, but tears of light rolled down her cheeks. The head instructor bowed his head and said, you have done more than survive. You have shown the truth, that unity is not born from sameness, but from trust and courage. Across the galaxy, the story spread, the human who chose the unwanted one and together faced the darkness beyond creation. They became symbols of hope, of what the Alliance could be. Their names whispered in every Academy hall. From that day, Arianel no longer hid her light. She walked the corridors, shining so brightly that even the walls seemed alive. She would sometimes catch Ethan watching her with that small, quiet smile, and she would feel the warmth rise within her like dawn breaking through shadow. One evening, they returned to the observatory, the same place where they once spoke about belonging. She asked him, do you still think light belongs wherever someone chooses to see it? He said, yes. And I choose to see it right here beside me. She looked at him, then the boy from Earth who sat beside her when no one else would, and she realized that the universe was vast, full of danger and silence, but also full of small miracles like this moment where two beings from different worlds could find something infinite in each other. Beyond that dome, stars moved slowly across the endless dark, as if bowing to the light they had created together. Somewhere in the void, the last fragments of the null drifted silent, remembering the burn of their unity, whispering that the brightest flame is born from two who dare to see one another, even in the deepest shadow. And so the story of Arianel of Valeria and Ethan of Earth became legend among stars, a song carried on the breath of travelers and children of both worlds who would one day look up and believe that even if they felt unwanted, unseen, or forgotten, someone somewhere was waiting to sit beside them and see them like a queen.